Hi everyone, and thank you for joining us at the Microsoft Fabric UK user group. I'm your host Leon Gordon, and as always, we're here for another fantastic opportunity to come together as a community to learn more on Microsoft, Power BI, and also Fabric. I'd like to introduce you to my co-host Pragati Jain.
Hi everyone, hope everyone is doing great and looking forward to this exciting session today.
Definitely. And we seem to be having quite a few sessions on Fabric recently. I know that the community has asked for this, and it's great to see different takes. We've had Microsoft employees join us directly, Microsoft MVPs, and we have a fantastic guest with us as well today, esteemed Microsoft MVP and Kratos BI data god creator, none other than Chris Wagner. Chris, thank you for joining us.
Hey, how the heck are you guys doing today?
Fantastic,
Good,
thank
good.
you. How are you?
I'm doing fabulous. You know why?
Why?
Yeah, tell us.
Because I get to talk to Pragati and Leon and about Fabric today. So those are
Wow.
my favorite days.
Wow,
Excellent.
that's great.
We're very, very excited for this session. As
Yeah.
always, let me just put this banner up, Chris, let everybody in the world know where they're joining us from. We're aware that we are the UK user group for Fabric, but also we have a global audience. So please do let us know in that comment, in that chat, where you're joining us from. And Chris, I don't want to hold you up too long because I'm as excited for this session, and so is Pragati as you are, and the community is. So let's dive off and let you jump straight in.
Awesome. Thank you so much for having me on your live stream. This is something that I've got a little YouTube video out there, but I've been kind of like chipping away. I've been adding some stuff into this, but straight up, I think having a demo database that you can test all of the different capabilities of any new tool or any new system is super important. All right. And that's why me being a big fan of the AdventureWorks database, I mean, that's always been my classical go-to space. When Fabric came out, I'm like, I need to have a Fabric Lakehouse available, right? So I went and I created one. It's great. This is out on, we'll get into that, right? But why? Why are we wanting to create this, right? Number one, we need to make sure that we've got our Fabric environment set up right. Are you able to create content? Do you have a workspace with a trial license? Do you have a workspace with a capacity? All of those things you get to test out and validate as you create this demo content. Number two, it gives you some experience actually working with the tools, right? Like, are you actually going to build and manage all of these things? It's going to allow you to go in and fail fast and have no impact on, anyone really. You spend a little time on it, you screw it up, blow it away, start over again, nobody cares. Can't do that in a production work environment, right? That's a no-no. But now it's a great time for that, all right? And so what this also allows you for is really, it's just one big proof of concept, right? Like, is this going to work? What components are going to work? And at what level do they work, right? So you can actually test these things out and validate that these are working and operating as you'd expect. So for example, like, do your notebooks run and load your data in? Great. What's the speed that they run at? Are they running at that same speed as what you would in other places? All of these things, you could start to test those pieces out as you stand up a lake house, and why you should be doing that, right? And then it also gives you the ability to create demos that you could showcase for other people on your team, other people in your company, or even for business users. When you're trying to like create that value proposition of like, hey, I think we should use Fabric because look at what I did in the span of an hour or the span of 20 minutes or over the course of the last week, right? It's super helpful in being able to actually show people like the actual code in place and things working. All right. And then the biggest one I like, because I'm going to use this code base for the next like decade. Uh, I like that it allows me to easily try out new features and capabilities. So when they add in some new pipelines or they add in some new data flow capabilities, or I'm attempting to replicate something, I've got an environment, I've got a space that I can go ahead and I can create all of that stuff in, right? So that is some of the reasons why you should get started with creating a Fabric Lakehouse right now, all right? But who the heck is this guy? Leon Pragati did a little bit of introduction. My name's Chris Wagner. I've been working in the data analytics space for 2 decades now. I've got a couple titles out there. I've had some awards. I'm a director of data solutions at Baker Tilly, so hit me up if you're looking for any help in those spaces. Also the founder of Kratos BI. Check out my website where it featured data gods and goddesses. I've totally fallen behind on that. Sorry, Leon. You're on deck, man. I swear to God. But you can find me on my website, on LinkedIn, on YouTube, on Twitter or X. I got to get a new icon there. But please do follow me. I'm posting all the time. I got stuff out there. I think I have over 370 videos on YouTube. I was a little shocked by that. So, oh well. All right. What the heck is this Fabric Lakehouse? Why are we talking about it? You know what a data lake is, right? People could dump data into that, and that was a big thing like 10 years ago. Like, ooh, we want to get a data lake so we could store all types of data because we got JSON and we got CSVs and we got videos and we got images and we want to jumble that out there. Well, that became a swamp and that became unmanageable, right? Like, just all sorts of problems resulted from that data lake. That made everyone like really look backwards and say, you know what was working before? Oh, it's the data warehouse. In fact, the data warehouse never left, right? The data warehouse is still here to this day, right? Why was that valuable? Why was that producing results? It's because all the data was structured, it was ordered, it was validated, it was in a place where you could get reliable, dependable results. I mean, data warehouses are just fantastic, right? Well, like someone had a Reese's peanut butter cup moment and said, well, why don't you put your data warehouse in my data lake? And and the other side was like, yeah, we should put the data lake in your data warehouse. And thus the Lakehouse was born. Okay. Fantastic thing that this allows for, and especially a Fabric Lakehouse allows for us to run any type of compute on top of it that we want. So any type of languages, if we want to run that, and we could do that against the same data on the same platform and not having to do like migrations and reloads. So i.e., you can run Python, no problem. Your team's all SQL based, hey, piece of cake. SQL's completely supported. And then if I'm talking to you, if you're a Power BI developer, a Fabric Lakehouse makes your life so much easier, because while you still need to have a star model in place and those facts and dimensions still have to be created and all that stuff is still required, you don't have to load data anymore. Did you hear that? You don't have to, hang on. Did you hear that? You don't have to load data anymore. So that in and of itself is just a fantastic thing, right? Like, gone are the days of having to like, oh, well, how long does your model take to load? Well, it was taking over an hour, so the Power BI service would time out. So I've built out a system of refreshes that refreshes table by table by table. So I'm sure it's it's relatively easy to get up and going. It's like you don't have to worry about that anymore. Okay, I got thrown off here. Sorry, my bad. All right, let's keep going. Now, when we talk about what are we getting when it comes to a Fabric Lakehouse, or how does this work, or what are the components that you have, and we're going to go into more detail on this. So, and we'll do an actual full-on demo. So, sorry for a few slides. Want to make sure that we have like a good understanding of what these different components are. Okay. We've got our data sources, and the big thing when it comes to data sources are these and OneLake is amazing. Check out, like, over my YouTube channel, I got some great videos on OneLake with a whole bunch of the product engineers over there. But the big thing we have here are the shortcuts. Okay, so if someone else has created and loaded the data into OneLake, they could just share a shortcut to you to that data lake, and you can just use it from there, right? So no, you don't have to go in and like recreate this wheel. You could just have it, right? Just in the same way, like in OneDrive, you just have access to that like PowerPoint or that Excel file. You don't have to download or do anything. You just use it, right? Especially if you're online, and Fabric is online, right? But it also allows you to like source information, send that through like data engineering pipelines, use data flows. You can bring that through. It brings all of that together into our Lakehouse, which is a combination of structured and unstructured data, where you can then transform it using notebooks and your data pipelines, or I guess, and you can transform via data flows. But then when it comes to consuming it and using it, you have a whole bunch of different options, your Power BI or your Pagé reports, or I'm sorry, your SQL queries and stuff. So where did my block go? All right, let's talk about it. All right, when we're talking about sourcing data, I kind of went a little deeper in this than I should, but we'll breeze through this. You've got your links. Again, now you don't have to copy things over, just have it. You can also build out and manage very robust pipelines using Data Factory or using data flows. Data Factory allows you to do some really incredible things at a truly like enterprise scale movements of data. So if you're trying to move petabytes of data, Data Factory will just rock that all out. Data Factory was inherited from the Azure Data Factory tooling. So if you're a pro dev, you come in with your knowledge and experience with Azure Data Factory, come into the environment, you're up and running, easy to go, and you can interact with your build in a whole bunch of different ways. All right. If you're the low code dev, if you're from the business, now you can use the same old Power Query that you've always known. You can use that in creating your data flow gens too. And I think I've got a great demonstration of that as well. All right. Now, once the data is into Fabric, then you have the opportunity to start using notebooks to actually like transform, change the data, and start to mash that up. In theory, you can actually make the connection inside a notebook, but just don't for purposes of whatever. And you could always use your data flows to do your mashup, to do your transforms, to do your cleansing, all of that good stuff. All right. And I should mention, I'm here to answer questions and stuff like that too. So if you've got a question, put Q : in front of it, put it into the chat. Pragati or Leon will come on, will like show back up again. They'll answer that question because happy to help you as well. All right. Let's keep going though. Okay. Now, and then we get to the actual consumption side. Here we have some huge different opportunities here. It's interesting. Power BI documentation only lists the two consumption pieces, but I think there's really a big additional consumption piece, and that's the notebooks. Okay, so Direct Lake, awesome. Check out my live stream from yesterday with Zoe, where we talk about Direct Lake. But Direct Lake allows you to go from Power BI directly to the Parquet files that are stored inside of your Lakehouse, and technically those are Delta files that are in the Parquet format. But that allows you to not have to do refreshes. You can stream data into those Delta files. You can really, get true scale and performance on that data. I asked yesterday, can you load a 40 petabyte model into Power BI Gen 2? And in theory, that is now something that's in the works as a possibility. So I'm very excited to test that out. Interested, if you've done so, please post those into the chat. Love to hear that. All right. And then the big other one here is a SQL endpoint. So you can write SQL queries, you can create views, you can share those views with other people. You can build balancing, queries to test out your data and check it out at the different levels. And it's just absolutely fantastic. Well, Leanne, we have questions?
We do indeed, Chris. You read,
Awesome.
you read my mind. So we do have a question coming in from Joel Lewis, and he asks, by notebooks, do you mean pandas in Pythons, or we need to use other ones such as Spark, for example?
So, no, yeah, you can use pandas inside of this. Now, I'm going to freely admit I'm not the notebook guy. So, like, there's a whole bunch of things I don't know about notebooks, but I know pandas you can use. What's the other big? There's a data like
you can use the Spark SQL as well context if you're coming from SQL background. You can use PySpark if you're coming from Python background. You can write a Scala code in the Databricks notebook. I mean, it's
Yep.
basically if you are fluent with Databricks, then you can actually do everything in Fabric.
Yeah.
So it's the similar notebooks. You can use all the three platforms: Scala, PySpark, Spark SQL. So yeah, it's up to you what your expertise are, basically.
100%. And there's a whole bunch of additional, like, and I forget what they call it. Pandas is like a runtime, or it's a plugin, or
like a library.
Library.
It's a library.
Yeah. But there's a whole bunch of other libraries that are automatically installed natively as part of Fabric, so you don't have to write that like install commands at the top of every notebook. You could just leverage them from the get-go. So again, that's not my wheelhouse, so I'll defer to better men than me for answering that, or women, whatever.
That's okay, Chris. And I suppose just to follow that up with a very brief question is, who do you feel Fabric is geared towards? Who's the perfect user for Fabric, so to speak?
Well, that's a great question. So if we take a step back and we think of how Power BI was built, Power BI came from the challenge that the enterprise analytical solutions were too long to deliver, unwieldy. The people who would build them would be heavy on the tech side, but very light on the business side at the time, pre-Power BI, right? So like, coding, C#, C++, Java, all that stuff, right? As an IT professional, but you wouldn't know anything about the business, right? So when the business would ask for things, it would take forever. Well, Microsoft realized, we need a scalable solution that could run at the enterprise, but was usable by the business users. And thus Power Query and Power Pivot, which became the tabular engine, and Power View that became Power BI, all started in Excel, so that it was very targeted at the business users. But the back end of all of these tools were an enterprise scale coding language that could, easily transition over to that enterprise support. So that tabular engine was the SQL Server analysis services, right? Power View became Power BI, the cloud scale solution that's out there. And Power Query for sourcing data is now our Power BI data flow, or I'm sorry, our Fabric data flows Gen 2, right? So today, Power BI and that subsection is really used by both the business user and the pro dev to manage solutions that run up and down the entire stack. Fabric is built in the exact same way. All of the tools and components you have are built on enterprise scale backend solutions with a lightweight, low code, no code front end for people who know the business to start working. So when you say who should get started in Fabric today, I actually think it's both sides of the house should be getting started and working in Fabric, because Fabric on the business side, they're going to be able to leverage that to deliver on solutions that would take much longer to hand over to IT to get done, just because IT spends more cycles hardening and actually hardcore engineering solutions, right? So this is not a knock on IT. It's just, there's a difference, right? A business user could get in and deliver something really quick and very valuable today, but has some technical debt that goes along with it. So there's a challenge there, but they could get started. At the same time, a business user, an IT professional should come in and start to engage with the platform and really understand what does it mean for a low code, no code, or a low code front end with a pro dev back end. What features are out there that work that will allow you to scale up that user's technical solution up into an enterprise solution? And more importantly, what are the bars or limits or best practices that you're going to need to establish for that business user so that they can hand that solution up to someone in IT, right? IT is going to be the ones who have to define those things, and they should be starting to define those things right now, and then uh, um, and then passing those over to business users. So as they're creating content, that technical debt starts to get lower and lower and lower, and it gets to the point where it's like easy to hand that over when it's appropriate.
Excellent. Thank you for addressing that for us, Chris. Sorry to throw you on a bit of a tangent there, but I thought it was a question worth asking. So I'll hand back over to you now.
Awesome. Yeah. Well, I am happy to get into it. When we talk about, and this is a great transition, because we're about to go into a demo and we're about to dive into this stuff, and I'm going to start to use some pro tools to go along with my Fabric build. Now you're going to see some of this stuff is like, oh yeah, I'm going to have to figure out how to do that. There's less so. Okay, so take it for what you will, but if you're starting in the Fabric area, I recommend you become at least a little bit familiar with these tools. Okay, so first off, we're going to be talking about Visual Studio Code. Visual Studio Code, free open source coding tool that's out there. You can just download that at Visual Studio Code. Really easy to work with, interact with. It's a very good text editor, and more importantly, it's really good at helping you manage your code base that's out in Git. Okay, and Git is a code repository, or your GitHub. It's a code repository that's integrated with Fabric. Visual Studio Code and GitHub make these things very easy to use. In fact, like, I've never successfully done I forget how it works in Git, like if it's a pull or a merge. Like, watch my live stream with Christina. She knows it all. She did a much better job of explaining it. But it makes it so easy. I did multiples of them today. So you could go out and check that out. Also, inside of Visual Studio Code, look for some Jupyter Notebook plugins. There's a handful of them that are out there. I think I've downloaded like the 3 or 4 like most popular ones that are available. I don't know. That's not my area again. I'm trying my best to learn more about that stuff. All right. And then I am still a big fan of Notepad++. I know I just said Visual Studio is a great text editor. It is. But if you're old and you just want something basic, Notepad++ rocks. It's my go-to in many cases. All right, so do check those out as you're trying these things out. You'll find it's relatively easy. All right. Now, everything we do today is available over on my Git repository. I'm going to be sharing the links to that when we flip over out of this presentation. And in fact, you know what? Let's go ahead and let's do that now. Oh my, where did my screen go? All right. So first things first, if you're starting in Microsoft Fabric, here is a great place to go in and engage with this. I'm sharing this Fabric link out on YouTube and into our StreamYard chat here, guys. If you could share that around, that would be fantastic. Inside Fabric, lots of different experiences for you to go in, create content either in PowerBI, Data Factory, Data Activator, whatever you're looking at, or go into the documentation or explore the community. I'm going to be running off of this Lakehouse file that is out here. This is out. It's publicly available. Do check it out. If you were working with this for a little bit, I had an issue in a notebook, but I fixed that today. So, do check this out. It is quite well. I think it's quite good. You let me know how you think about it. But all right. But we want to keep these things as simple as we possibly can. You can start in those different places, but I'm just going to start in Power BI like many of you do today. When it comes to like engaging in the Fabric space, you just start in the free space that you're accustomed to working in. Okay, so I'm gonna like start from scratch. So I'm gonna use some code base that's out there that I just showed you. But we're going to go in and we're going to actually create a new workspace because we're going to, like I said, do this for you guys, right? So this is going to be my Fabric UK demo. And a big thing I want to do is make sure that I'm using my trial capacity. My trial that I have set up here. You can use a Fabric capacity. Let me zoom in so you can see this. So if you have a Fabric capacity that's up and running and that you're using, you can go ahead and select that. Now, capacities are relatively expensive. My the one I have is far smaller than my trial because the trials are nice. They're nice and big. F64s, they're huge, so they run really fast. So we're going to use that for the purpose of this. Okay, so apply, creating my own workspace. Okay, now inside my workspace, you can see down this lower corner here, I am in my Power BI experience. Okay, so what that means is that everything that I see from this menu up here is going to be all Power BI analytics related stuff. Okay. But it's Fabric, it's one client, right? So if I want to get access to everything, I just can click on show all and I can get access to it. Or if I want, I can go down into the lower corner here and I can change my user experience as to whatever it is I want to be looking at, right? In this case, though, I'm just going to go to new. I'm going to say show all so I can see all the content that's out here. Okay. Now, inside of this experience, you can see all the different things that you could do. Like, okay, I could do data activator, data engineering, data factory, data science, warehousing, or Power BI content. In this case, though, I'm going to be creating a lakehouse. All right. So I'm just going to click on Lakehouse, and I'm going to call this one my Adventure Works Lakehouse. LH. And if you're following with my code, make this change, or you're going to have to make changes throughout the whole thing. So follow the naming conventions. Okay. So while that is going to spin up, and you're going to see how long it takes to generate a lakehouse. Oh, it's pretty quick, right? So relatively easy and painless to get this up and running. So the other thing that I'm going to have inside of my Git repository out here, so I'm now going to start to use this, is inside this AdventureWorks database. I've got all of the CSV files from, it's not necessarily all of the tables that are out there, but you know what? It's a lot of the tables that are out there. So I'm going to have I'm going to download the zip file. So I'm going to download the zip. And I'm going to then open it up. And I'm going to take all of this information and I'm just going to drop that into my C file. So it's like real easy for me to find when I'm building stuff. Okay. So what I want to do is from within my AdventureWorks Lakehouse, under the file section, I want to go in and I want to upload. Let me see if I can get a good screen on this. So I'm going to upload a folder. Okay. So make it real easy. So upload folder. And then I go and I click on the box. You know, wouldn't it be helpful if it actually gave you some sort of prompt there, but it doesn't. MVP, they're working out the kinks and stuff like that. It'll all be good. So let's go to my C drive. And then I've got my AdventureWorks. I can browse into it. And well, there's stuff in there. I can guarantee that. And I'm just going to click on upload. Okay. It's going to say, whoa, do you really want to upload all this stuff? I'm going to say yes, right? Let's upload all of those things. Although that's interesting. It said 22 because I thought I had 25 files. Yeah.
Sorry, Chris, to interrupt. Can you zoom in a little bit? Because I think it's not clear for everyone to see what's on the screen. Yeah.
Oh, sure. Yep. So I've selected it here. And I'm going to click on upload. And you know what? I'm going to click on overwrite the folder if it already exists. So upload, and you can see, boom, all my files are starting to upload. Look at that. It's going, oops. Oh, and it's all done already, right? So I can close this. I can go over to my files and I can see inside of my AdventureWorks files here. And let me go over there. You can see this. I can browse into my AdventureWorks folder and I can see that I've got my folder here, but I've also got like everything is up and ready throughout here. So it's all available for me. I have a few options. Now I could file by file. I could go on and click on this little ellipses and I could click on load to table, new table, or because, we like to be efficient, right? I could go in and I could click on this load to new tables, right? If I click on this, what's going to happen is it's going to load all of my tables or all of the files, all the CSV files into my Lakehouse. And hey, I'm up and ready and I'm good to go. All right. I am going to say though, we're not going to do any of that. Okay. So let me explain why we're not going to do any of that. If I upload these files as CSVs through this process, and we can kind of see what these fields look like. Okay, so you can see that it's a camel case, account key, parent key. Now, in my case, there's no spaces between the field names. But what happens if you go down this path in doing the loads is you end up like losing. It all goes to lowercase, and spaces get dropped, and you get downstream issues. Well, I didn't want that. I wanted to keep my camel case, and I wanted to be able to keep spaces if I was necessary, so that any other processes I want to import in, I could do that without a problem. Okay. So in order to do that, I'm going to use the other big thing that we have inside of Lakehouse, which is the ability to use notebooks for that. Okay. Now, I could go back into my workspace and, oh, look at that. What do we have here? Holy cow. I created the Lakehouse, but look what else is here. I've got a SQL endpoint, came by default, and I've got a data set for AdventureWorks. What this means is, as a data engineer or data scientist wanting to work with the data, I can stay in the Lakehouse. I can use my notebooks. I can build out data models on top of it. I can do all sorts of things with my data. I can engineer. I can load it. I can do all that to manage it. I'm good to go. If I'm an analyst or someone who wants to write queries or create views on top of my data, I can leverage my SQL endpoint to do that. And if I want to create PowerBI reports that sit on top of it, I can do that right from the default data set that's right there. Like super easy, barely an inconvenience, easy to get up and running. Okay. And that was, you saw me doing this, right? I didn't do anything to create those. Those just came and were created with Fabric. Okay. But I want to use a notebook because what's it that someone said something about like not being lazy, being efficient. That's my entire goal. But so I'm going to import the notebook that I brought over, and you can use the same notebook on this because our trial should be, or efforts on this stuff should be easy. In order to get to that screen, though, oh no, oh you can actually see me still. Okay, almost. Sorry. Yeah, there we go. Thank you. All right. Down here is the data engineering screen. As far as I know, this is the only place you can find the notebook for or importing a notebook. I don't know why. UI designer at Microsoft, FYI, maybe fix that, right? So I'm going to go and I'm going to import a notebook, and I want to upload that from what I had just created. So one of the files I downloaded was the notebooks. Where the heck did that go? Oh, I see. It's over. It's still over here. I didn't drag that over. My bad. So notebooks. Click on load the AdventureWorks. Here we go. Sorry. So you can actually see it's the load AdventureWorks notebook that's out there. I'm going to click on that and click on open. And you can see up in the upper right-hand corner when it was imported successfully. Great. I can either go to the workspace or I can just click on the AdventureWorks workspace, and I can see that my notebook is right here. Okay, so all good there. Now, I click on my Load AdventureWorks notebook. Here's what's going to pop up. All of the cells that are already coded to load my Lakehouse, but I've got something that's missing here. Okay, I don't know if you can see this, but it's missing a Lakehouse, and it's because the notebook has to be like could attach to a Lakehouse or something, and then this always breaks when you export it out. And I don't know exactly how this works, but what I'm going to do is I'm going to. Oh, I see what happened. I'm going to delete these Lakehouses, and then I'm going to add in the one I want. So I'm going to delete that one. We don't want that one. Now we're going to go ahead and go add Lakehouse. We're going to say existing Lakehouse, right? You can see that. Click on add. And it's the Fabric UK demo, my AdventureWorks Lakehouse. Click on add that in place. And all right, and I've got that pinned in. I'm good. This is my Lakehouse I'm applied to. Now, few options. I could go through and let's just take a look at one of these containers. So if you're not used to working with notebooks, like I'm not used to working with notebooks, I want to make sure we touch on a few things. Okay. So first things first, V-order is something that Microsoft gave us. They spent a long time engineering this. This orders the data inside of our Delta files so that they're specifically tuned to work with Power BI directly versus having to do that import. So having this statement in is super important, right? And then also having this optimization statement in is key because it helps ensure that it's been optimized and it's optimized for writes so that you could do appends and updates in the future if you want it. Okay. Now we're going to import from PySpark SQL types. It's going to be an import. And we're going to be setting our data frame to be reading where we have a header is true, right? Like we have a header file on this. It's a CSV format. And this is the file, dim account. And then what overwrite or what mode do we want when it comes to writing this? This is my overwrite mode. So I'm just going to be dropping and replacing it. It's not going to be appending or anything like that. The format is Delta. And then the table is going to become dim account. Okay. Now, again, want this to be easy for everyone. So I've already kind of created all of this stuff out there so that you can use this. A big shout out. I guess I didn't have this in all of the lines of code, but a big shout out to Mim. He helped me. He wrote this base code, and I'm just using it. So I'll be honest, I didn't create it myself. Now, I have an option here. I can either just run the cell, or I can run the cell. Oh, look at that! I can run the cell. I can run all above this. Oh wait, let me zoom. Sorry. I can hit play here, and it'll run the cell. I can run all above the cell, or I can run this cell and all below. Or I can just go up to the top and I can click on run all. Okay. Now I'll run one so you can kind of see what it takes. Now, if you're familiar with Databricks or other environments that are like that, it's really easy for, the old, it was not that long ago where it took 10 minutes or so for most of these environments to spin up and up and running. There's been a ton of engineering that's gone on that's dropped that 10 minutes down to like more like 4 to 7 minutes, but it still can really feel like an eternity when you're trying to get something up and running. But now look at that. I mean, how long did that take, right? Where's my log here? Oh, why didn't it say it? It used to say. Boy, these things change so quickly. All right. Well, I missed where it says there. Am I just missing it? Interesting. So it was relatively fast, right? Oh, there it is. 9 seconds. Sorry. Okay, so it wasn't 10 minutes to spin up. It wasn't 3 to 4 minutes to spin up and get running. It took 9 seconds to get this up and running. So I'm just going to go ahead and I'm going to click on run all because, why the heck not? And we're going to see that this data is going to start to load and it's going to start to run through all of the different folders down there. And we'll just kind of, because it does go relatively quickly, we're just going to make sure that they all finish and that when I did my code commit, I didn't screw something up before we go on to the next key part of this demo. We're looking pretty good. Look at that. It's running and loading. All right. Well, that is going pretty good. So the next thing we want to do inside of here is, and I'm just going to actually just spin up, sign in again and go over to another window of this. So I'm in my Fabric UK demo workspace. And so this is loading into my Adventure Works Lakehouse, and I can go in and I can now start to see, oh, look at that. Look at that. Tables are starting to show up inside of my Lakehouse, and we're starting to get these things up and running and good. Okay. Now, this is fantastic. I want these things to load. I want these things to script, but you know what? What if I wanted another way to engage with this? So this is a nice way to look at it, but Chris, okay, I could create a data set on top of it, or I could open a notebook on here. As you can see, there are a couple options. I could get some more data. But what if I wanted to actually query this stuff? Aha, don't worry, I got you. Right? Remember we said that there's the SQL SQL endpoint that's available. That's right up here. I could change the setting from Lakehouse over to endpoint. Let me focus on that, right? So when we're in Lakehouse mode now. When I go to SQL endpoint, watch what happens. This is exciting. All right. And notice the little note up here. PowerBI default dataset for faster reporting was created and will automatically be updated with any tables and views added to the Lakehouse. Ooh, that's exciting, right? Okay, so I'm going to close. I'll leave that up. But now I can see that I'm starting to get all of my tables. Oh, did you see that? It refreshed. Another table became live, right? So my notebook's still running over here. Oh, look, I had an issue. I guess I didn't fix it. Fact product inventory. All right. Well, you know what? Delete that guy. This still and all below. I must have really. There's no fact reseller sales. I doubt that. I deleted the reseller sales. Oh, well, I'm going to have to fix that. That's a problem. All right. Well, we'll fix that in a bit. But I can come in here and I can now start to interact with my report, and I can now start to do things with this data. In fact, you know what? Well, okay. So I can, and I like this quite a bit. I can now write queries. So I could, you'll see up on top, I've got a few options: write queries, create a visual query, create a new report, or create a new measure. Now, for this part, I'm going to actually skip ahead to after we've already applied a number of different things, so that there's some views and some queries that are inside the Git repo. I'm not going to take all the time to create those for you right now. Let's just take those as rote because it's just creating those. So I'm going to go over to my Lakehouse, and as you can see, I play with this all the time, right? So I want to start with something clean for you to be able to engage with, but I want to filter in on what's important. So I'm going to be looking at my Lakehouse and my SQL endpoint. And if you guys haven't seen this, this is a lifesaver for you inside of the Fabric, okay? Now you could filter down to just what you're trying to interact with and look at to make these things much easier, okay? You can also do, filtering by the different products or who owns it. I absolutely love this. It makes life so much easier, okay? So, but let's keep going. So I have over here my Adventure Works Lakehouse. Oh, that's actually important. My Adventure Works Lakehouse and my data flow staging Lakehouse. Okay. The Adventure Works Lakehouse is the one we want to use. That's good. We need to have this up and running. The data flow staging Lakehouse is something that is used behind the scenes. If you've created a data flow on it, do not use this. This is going to be hidden from view. This is something that shouldn't be exposed to the world. So don't use this as a place to go and do things. We're gonna lose access to it. There's low need to use it. So okay, just calling that out. Okay. Now I want to show you the SQL endpoints. I'm going to go into the AdventureWorks Lakehouse, presuming we've got all of our content in place. And Leon, if you could put my camera over to the other side, way over there, that would be fantastic. I'd appreciate that. Otherwise, we're going to have a problem. So this is my AdventureWorks database after it's already been completely and totally loaded. We're already here. This is all good to go. Now, a few things, okay? I can do this great thing called create a SQL query. Now, if you look at this, I just have these queries inside of my folders so that I can actually play with different queries, test things out, experiment with them, and know that I've never lost them, right? They're just in these notebooks. So I love this a lot. And it's relatively easy to come in and where'd my mouse go? There it is. To just go in and rename it to what is this? Sample join query. Right. And I did that by clicking on the query name. There's some ellipses over there. Then up pop this screen. Okay. So click on rename. But now I can do something really cool inside of my database, which is I can run just straight up SQL statements against the data that's out there. Okay, super helpful and be able to go in and use this and do different things with it. Okay, because doing this type of thing in Power BI is super tricky, especially if you're like creating a set of people and then doing a regression cohort analysis. You can do it, but it's super easy in SQL. It's very challenging in Power BI. All right. But I can also create all sorts of views that I have inside my database. Now, I love these views because what I've done is on my date dimension table is I've created a little offset on here so that all of my dates in my AdventureWorks database, I mean, that thing is super old. They're 2012 and stuff like that. I don't like that. I want it to be current. So I've created an offset so that everything I'm always looking at looks right. So I've been able to leverage and use views that I've had for years that were in my SQL data warehouse. I've been able to use those inside of my Lakehouse without having to rewrite everything into Python or rescript things into different languages. I mean, other than a schema change, I was just good to go. Okay. And now I've got these great views that are up and available for me to use inside my Lakehouse. All right. Now, holy cow, we are running low on time. So I'm gonna just make one other little thing here. Number one being, well, a few things. Number one, you can connect to this SQL server just like you can any other SQL server, right? So, because that's what this is. It's basically a SQL server on the back end. You just don't know it. Okay, so you copy this string, you can launch SSMS, and you can go right in, paste it in, sign in. It's going to ask me to authenticate. Oh, come on now. Oh, that's because don't use your work password on your home computer. And I am right into my database, right? So I now have access to this workspace. And here's my AdventureWorks Lakehouse. Here's that other staging warehouse that we were talking about. And then I also created a Synapse workspace, but that's another presentation. But I'm right there. I'm inside Management Studio. I'm good to go, right? I can use that any place where I use a SQL connector. I can do the same thing. I can also go in here and I can start to integrate and use and work with this data set, because this is what this is. This is the data set web authoring experience. So I can, create a report off of it. I can create new measures. Heck, I could even holy cow, that is zoomed in. I can even start to join these things together. I'm not going to do that inside of here because joining here requires me to okay, scenario key. What is this? Dim sales territory. Where's my, I've got to drag these all around and get them so that they're all good. Nobody likes that, right? That's all bunk. So I'm going to use, good old tabular editor 3. Use tabular editor 2 if you want as well, right? And I know there's a new version. I'm going to go in, I'm going to connect in, use that same endpoint, click OK. I think it's the same endpoint. Is it the same endpoint? Someone save me some time. It's not the same endpoint, is it? I have to go to the Workspace endpoint. Haha. If I want to go in there, I just go to Workspaces and my premium connector up on the side here. All right, you see Workspace settings, premium. And then there's the Workspace connection problem. So I was clicking on the wrong thing. That's the wrong link. Copied that. Yeah, that's not the right thing. Paste that in. Go OK. Go authenticate. And I can choose which data set I'm going to connect to. Note, a whole bunch of ones that are out there. I want to connect to this one that's 1604 or higher. Okay. Reason for 1604 is because this is 1604 is the minimum level that supports direct link. So I'm going to select 1604, click OK. Really? Well, okay. Live demos, that's how that works. I know it worked an hour ago on it, so I don't know why it didn't work this time. So okay. So I've got this up and running, and so I've created I've created a Lakehouse. I've uploaded files. I've uploaded, you've seen we could run and we could do load files through the UI. We've loaded files with the notebook that's provided. We've gone in, we've run queries and created views using the SQL endpoint. And then we've also shown how you could go in and edit the standard data model using not just the UI interface, but through tabular editor 2 or 3 or whatever. Don't know why that didn't work. There's another thing though I want to show you. So if you're familiar, and this, I gotta be quick on here because this is clearly taking too long. If you're familiar with data flows, many of you probably use this to bring all sorts of data into your environment, right? And so data flows is great because you go to connect to 350, 60 some odd sources that were out there, bring that into your production environment, and and then you could use those by n number of reports. And here's an example of one, right? So I'm gonna say no, I don't know what this was. But okay, hey, this is my data flows. It loads all my stuff. I love this. I've got all sorts of transformations in here. This loads it into data flows. I want to load it into my data lake, because that's something data flows could do. So you could do more than just load it into the data flows that go into Power BI data models. You could do that. And if you look at this, you go, wow, I don't want to remap everything or recode everything. Chris, how can I get in and make this simpler? I got you. All right. So if we go to edit tables, we see all of our tables that are inside of here. What we can do is we can export a template, right? So we can export a template. We can call this Erks UK demo. And we can export that out. And it's going to export that out. And then what I can do is I can go back into my AdventureWorks. Okay, close it. Cancel. Close. I can go back into my AdventureWorks and I could say new, and this is important. Go to show all. Hang on, let me show you again. I go show all, and I choose Data Flow Gen 2 preview. I'll zoom in so you can see it good. Oops. Pop-ups in the way. All right, I'm going to be clicking on this one. I'm going to click on my Data Flow Gen 2 preview. And then, because if you actually like look at what this looks like, here, let me show you. Like you can export like data flows out and like keep them in code base and stuff like that. This is what that data flow looks like, right? So I was thinking, well, maybe I could import it in as like a new one or something like that. And then I tried to like compare one table that I create over and like, oh, that's too hard. That's too much, right? I try to learn something from the templates, but the templates gobbledygook. So like, that's nothing. So yeah, don't look at that. That's ugly. But because I have a template, look what I can do. I can import one of the things that's right on the screen here is I can click on import from a Power Query template and go to my downloads. And I can select that AdventureWorks UK demo. I can click on open. And here's the only time sync part of this. So number one, we have to go in and we have to first configure this connection. All right. You see there's an error and there's an error on all of these, right? Credentials are required, right? So I've got to go over here and click on configure connection. And it's going to ask me because it's smart enough to know how, do you want to connect to your, this gateway and use this connection? Now, the great thing about this is if you just went in to create a data flow Gen 2, like there's been errors for a little while, at least, where you don't get this pop up and it just becomes like, oh, I guess I can't do it now. Here you can, right? So now you're going to see all of these things start to register and you're going to think, ha, I'm done. I can publish this and I'm good to go. Leanne, I need to move to the other side now. Sorry, Leanne. Because, that's how that works. Thank you. Oh, there we go. All right. The problem we're going to have, though, is that none of these data sets are pointed at a destination, okay? Now, or any of these flows are. And so you have to map that in by clicking on the little plus symbol right here. And the little plus symbol down here, and then choosing the Lakehouse, okay? You can also get it to, where is it? Right up on top here, there's add to destination. You can do that, and you can say Lakehouse. I couldn't figure out any way to select multiple. So you have to do this one at a time. And this is kind of why, and this does make sense, is you're going to define the Lakehouse. Like, yeah, I'm going to a Lakehouse. Got it. I'm going to be signed in. You have to choose the Lakehouse that it's going to go to, right? So I'm going to go to my Fabric UK demo. I'll keep it here, and we'll just preface this with UK. So preface it with UK because that already exists inside my demo environment. You don't have to do UK just for purpose of this. But then I've got to define inside of here, number one, am I going to be appending this data to the bottom of the data that I'm loading? Or is this going to be a replace situation, right? So in this case, I just want to replace everything. And then I want to make sure that on my mappings, what's happening here from the source, the mapping is going to be what I want it to be, right? And I don't see any issues with this, but you do take a time to review that. Then we click on Save Settings in the lower corner over here, and it's going to go through and it's going to finish that. Now, not the super fastest thing in the world, but it can actually get done. Now I've got 1 minute left, so I'm going to quick finish with what the heck are your next steps? All right, I want you to act. Go out there, look at Microsoft Learn, check out the programs, the trainings that are out there. Number 2, join us on Fabric Fridays, 7:30 to 8:30 a.m. Central morning in the U.S. I don't know what time it is on your side. You do the math. Get yourself a trial license, get yourself a trial tenant, whatever you got to do. Get out there and start working with it. Download my Git repo and then follow me on YouTube and LinkedIn to get up and running. Okay, and that's it. That's all I got. Whew. I think I'm done.
Chris, you
It's
can
fast
sit,
at the end there.
you can sit back and relax now, or can you? Because we have a couple of questions. If you do have a couple of moments of time, if not, we can
I do.
fire
Let's
them.
go. Let's do this.
Okay, I'd rather get them in. So let's go straight in with Oliver O'Shea. And they ask, is the data set a best efforts guess, i.e. relationships, etc.? Are they created on the fly? How does that look within Fabric when you're bringing the data in for the Adventure Works Lakehouse?
Yeah, it's just like the data marts thing. It's wonky. That's the best way I could say it. Sometimes it's created, sometimes it's there, sometimes it's not. Please close the dialog. I'm not going to do that. And I can't do that there. Here I can find one. If it detects it can auto map. I would not count on it. I'd make sure you go through and test that yourself. Oh, and here's the other wonky thing with data sets. Here's my data set. If I want to edit my data set, I go into my SQL endpoints. Why? Don't know. But yeah, that's what it is.
We do have to caveat this that this is very much still in preview as
well.
Okay, and then Pragati, we have another question from Oliver as well.
Yeah. So Oliver O'Shea, sorry if I'm mispronouncing your name. The question is, does anyone know if I can connect to a data flow from old-fashioned SIS?
So yes, data flows run in the service natively, but you can call them via API keys, and you can trigger them to run just like you would any other web call. Now, probably do Power Automate for that. That's much easier to set up, but you can do it with SSIS. You just have to make sure you can authenticate and make that call. Might need a service principal, in other words.
Excellent. Thank you very much, Chris. That's all of the questions that I believe that we have at the moment. So let's just jump back into this view. But I must say that's an excellent walkthrough in terms of Fabric. I know that we covered a lot in an hour there, Chris. So kudos to yourself for going through that in such detail with us. And I hope it's opened up everybody's eyes within the community to what are the possibilities for Fabric, the use cases, who it's for, and also some of the hints, tips, and tricks that we saw in there, as well as the filter functionality and some other neat tricks you gave us there as well, Chris.
Oh, I loved it, actually, that filter functionality. Thanks for showing that, Chris. I literally didn't identify that. I've been working with Fabric for a few weeks now.
Oh, really?
I never went and checked. Yeah, I never went and checked it. That filter actually allows me to filter my artifacts in the workspace. And I just saw
it's
what?
It's fantastic, right?
It's amazing what you learn from looking over somebody else's shoulder.
Yeah, exactly. I think it's more like learning every day. You see someone else showing the same thing and you're like, oh, I didn't know that. Or how does this work, right? So yeah, that's really a key takeaway for me.
There's many ways to skin a cat, as they say. But Chris, like I say, it's been a pleasure to have you back with us once again, and we look forward to having you with us again in the future, definitely as well.
Oh yeah, this is a great time. This is my lunch hour, so like you let me know. Happy to get back together with you guys. All right.
Excellent.
I got a jet.
Definitely.
Have a good
Thanks
one,
again,
everybody.
Chris. Thanks.
Thank you so much, Chris.
And thank you to everybody for joining us as well here at the Microsoft Fabric UK user group. You could have been anywhere in the world, but you've been here with us. Thank you as well to my co-host, Pragati Jain.
Thanks, Leon. It was an amazing session. And yeah, thank you all. I mean, stay tuned. We are going to bring some amazing content soon, getting some amazing speakers for you guys. So yeah, stay tuned.
Excellent. Thanks, everyone.
Thank you. Bye.